When we use the word deep, what I'm talking about is being introspective. So let's talk about why it's good to be an introspective Aspie or a deep Aspie. Maybe another way of thinking of this is somebody who is a deep thinking Aspie, okay? Because, well, we're looking on the inside. Again, introspective. We came up with 5 things. I came up with 5 things. You may come up with some things that I didn't think of, or you may be able to add a few things to the 5 things that I came up with. So let me know. But number one, I've noticed that people with Asperger syndrome, and there are a lot of exceptions to this, but I noticed that people with Asperger syndrome, high-level autism, tend to have a sense of humor. Have you noticed that? I don't know. It just maybe I'm not the best illustration of that, but when I watch other people on YouTube who claim to have Asperger syndrome, who have Asperger syndrome or autism, almost all of them have a sense of humor. There are a couple exceptions, but they tend to be lighthearted and not just funny, but they are fun people. And where does that come from? Where does that sense of humor come from? And I wish I had it. But it comes from deep inside, introspection. They see the light side of things, they see the funny side of things, and maybe, I don't know why, I'm just guessing here, but maybe it's because people with autism have seen the bad side of things so often that they look in. They're searching for the other side, and they find it. So they find humor and other things, and it could be that maybe, and again, I'm just guessing, but when they were growing up, or when we were growing up, that we needed some kind of relief. And so we would learn to make wisecracks or jokes. I remember when I was a kid, probably, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old, I was hanging out with some of the kids in the neighborhood, and one of the guys said something. He wasn't real happy about it, but he said, Ken keeps making wisecracks. I thought I was funny, but apparently they didn't. I don't know. Number one was sense of humor. Number two is self-control. Seems like people with Asperger syndrome, I really shouldn't use the term seems like, because it's just overwhelmingly evident that people with Asperger syndrome, with autism, are almost always far more in control of their emotions than other people. The exception is when they have meltdowns. It's when everything seems to pile up and finally the balloon explodes. But they don't seem to get as excited. We talk sometimes about a ball game, and people get mad or they get happy, one or the other. They go to one extreme or the other depending on how the circumstances in the ball game are going. If their team is winning, yeah, they're ecstatic. But if their team is losing, they get mad, they boo, they curse the umpire rather, and the referee, depends on what game they're playing. But that seems to be a microcosm of life. That's the way neurotypical people seem to deal with life. I mean, just watch them when they're driving in the highway, driving down the street. You ever drive with someone who talks to all the other motorists as if they could hear them, and they're explaining what they're doing wrong, or, okay, go ahead and cut me out, I don't care, kind of sarcastic. I don't know why people do that. They can't hear you. It doesn't change anything. I guess it's just kind of a release of emotions. But people with Asperger syndrome, people with autism, no, we don't express ourselves like that. We have more control. We have impulse control. And, I got to keep saying there are exceptions, but people with autism, they don't fly off the handle, so to speak. They don't become angry easily. It takes a lot to provoke a person with autism. When you do provoke a person with autism, you might want to, get away as quick as you can, because sometimes, they go totally berserk. I guess I've never seen one actually do that. But, we tend to have self-control. We're in control of our emotions. And maybe it's because, and again, I'm speculating here, that we just don't have emotions that need to be controlled. But that takes us to number 3, which is empathy or affective empathy. And probably one of the biggest misunderstandings about people with Asperger syndrome, people with autism, is that we lack empathy. They're missing that because, empathy is not singular. It's multifaceted. So a lot of people have what is called what we would call cognitive empathy or intelligent empathy, in that they can read other people very well. They can read facial expressions, they can read body language, little nuances that are expressed non-verbally. Neurotypical people can pick up on those things. That is a weakness with people with Asperger syndrome, with autism, is we tend not to be able to pick up on those things so well. I don't really have a problem with it, but I think I'm an exception. But we do have very strong affective empathy. So there's cognitive empathy, which we're lacking by and large, and there's affective empathy. And that just simply means affective. And that is because, again, we're deep thinkers. We are introspective. If we see somebody who is hurting, particularly somebody who is alone or someone who is experiencing something that we have experienced in our life, we, in our hearts, kind of reach out to that person. So, yeah, that is a positive part of being a deep Aspie. And by the way, I like being introspective, even though sometimes, you can take it too far, right? Number 5 is this. We tend to be open to new experiences and ideas. And again, people who are not deep thinkers, people who are not introspective, I don't think that is necessarily one of their traits, because they tend to get on the track. They like things done the way they want them done. They want their expectations met, but people with Asperger syndrome, not so much. We're open to those things. I think maybe because we haven't had access to those things throughout much of our lives. Now, the exception, comes down to what I call the spreadsheet syndrome. That when it comes to our routines, no, we're not open. We like our routines. So that doesn't apply there. But when it comes to new ideas, I can't say virtually every new idea that's ever been had was an Aspie, but we notice that people who are inventors, the Nobel Prize winning types, they tend to be people with autism or Asperger syndrome or high functioning autism. I read this somewhere. I need to look it up again, but several of Asperger students, the kids that he worked with, grew up to be Nobel Prize winners, from what I've read. So we have that thing where we're open to new ideas, new experiences, in that sense, keeping again in mind that, we like our routines. From that, we're not open. Now, speaking of openness, there are 5 personality traits, and the first of the 5 is openness. So I think we're going to do a video shortly on how Aspies relate to those 5 personality traits. You may have heard this before. They spell out psychologists use the acronym OCEAN to describe those or to identify those 5 traits. So let's do a video on that. I think that would be interesting. So you see those 2 rectangles on the screen. Those are there so that we can keep the conversation going. If you want to keep on talking, all you got to do is click on one of those 2 rectangles, and we'll keep hanging out. But if not, thanks for stopping by, and see y'all later.